All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a Common Rule podcast, and I am your humble narrator. My name is Danny. Well, looks like I got most of the kinks worked out of the live streaming version of this thing. And hey, it'll be set up to where if you really can't wait for the next podcast, I guess they'll first go up on the live stream on YouTube. If you follow my channel will be easy to get to. It'll be live.thecommonrule.com, and that'll take you to the channel. And in case you ever wanted to check it out, if once we go live and live stream, that'll be you'll follow the same link on that too. It's just another little thing that I just wanted to do to be able to have the podcast up and running and have video versions of the podcast without having to do way too much editing and post. This way, I figured out a way how to get good audio and, of course, the visuals and different camera angles and things like that. It took me a sec, but yeah, it's done. So I'll let you guys know as far as, hey, when we go live, you guys can call in, text in, and, of course, leave comments on the YouTube if you so wish. All right, well, today's conversation is with Gabriel. I met Gabriel through the Phoenix Film Revival lab and community over here in Phoenix, Arizona. We met at a photo walk, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. It's a Beers and Cameras photo walk. But we really, and I'm going to apologize up front right here. I know that I didn't mean for this to be a photography podcast overall. However, every once in a while, I'm going to talk to photographers, of course, because that's the creative talent that's most readily available to me, it seems, especially being part of the Phoenix Film Revival. And while I definitely want to speak to as many artists as possible, I did want to keep the dorking out on equipment and film and all that jazz, more or less keep it to the Phoenix Film Revival podcast, because that's where it should go. So, which, by the way, those tune into those as well. I help Daniel run that podcast, and we talk to as many photographers as we can in that community as well. But you've been warned. We really dork out on this podcast with gear and film and overall really photography-based stuff here. There's a couple of things that I hope you guys pick up from and enjoy the conversation. But, again, it's very photography-oriented. Or whatever. It's fucking photography based. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoy the conversation with Gabriel. So, hey, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I met you through, just to give people a little background, I met you through the Phoenix Film Revival / Copper State Film Walk.
Right.
A while ago. Although I think maybe we've seen each other before, but didn't formally meet at that time.
Either through kind of those local film or camera communities, probably. Just either, I don't know if you went to the Beers and Cameras things. I did those ones. I went to a few of those first before Copper State kind of picked up. And then I've kind of pretty much tried to go as religious as possible to the Copper State ones.
Yeah, I love those. I love the people in that one. That was a very good. Like, I was just when I first started the podcast, I was telling people, and I've said this before, I fucking hate photo walks. I think they're definitely
not for photos,
right? And they're more for like, okay, who got the best gear, and not about who shares the most and who has the more information to sell or to pass out or to share or to, who makes better photographs sort of thing. Sure. And it's just like, not that it's a competition, but it's definitely not about fucking what gear you have and shit like that.
It's a little bit of a car show. Yeah.
Yeah. But the people, I was very surprised that obviously the one at the Copper State one photo walk, everyone was so cool. Shout out to them and always Phoenix Film Revival and Beers and Camera. Everyone was so cool, nonchalant, low key. No one was a fucking dick or anything like that. So, but you had let's call it a special camera with you that you kind of built, kind of modified a little bit.
You talking about the instant Leica?
That that one.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, how did you dream that up, first of all?
Well, it was, I think, I saw it on Instagram as like a Kickstarter, and I was like, that'd be a really cool idea to try and find a way to put like an instant back on a Leica M series camera. But you know, as Kickstarters go, sometimes they're high quality products, and sometimes it's a bag of plastic garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, this one actually works pretty well, and it's basically like any kind of 35 millimeter camera that has a removable back, like at least film door in this case. That sucker just goes right on and latches on, and it closes up, and it uses uses a relatively a cheaper instant film, so you're not killing yourself shooting it all the time. It uses just the Fuji Instant Square, which I like that over probably the Instax, the smaller version. So I was like, all right, that's sick. And so I picked it up, and it's got its quirks. You know, you lose a little light as it passes through all the way down to get to the film, but it's cool. I mean, with the flash, you compensate a little bit, and it's cool. It's kind of a heavy rig. I haven't used it too much, but it's just kind of one of those tools I wanted to have in the toolbox in case something like, if I want something on like an instant film, but not using a Polaroid or something.
Yeah, it is definitely something to look at. Now, some people, I hate to put it this way, but some people would look at it like putting a silk hat on a pig sort of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's
I mean, I didn't buy it to be like it's not the sharpest and the greatest format in the world. It's definitely more of going to be like a fun toy.
Yeah,
it's a toy.
Yeah, I think it's. Have you always tried to manipulate or modify, is a better word, of camera gear and stuff like that?
Not by my own hand. Okay. I'm gonna have to do that I'm actually kind of getting into the same thing with my 4x5. So I have a Crown graphic.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of stocked up FP100C and the 3 1/4, 4 1/4 size.
Okay.
And I've been waiting for the longest time to pick up a Polaroid back that'll use that 10-pack shot cartridge or whatever. So I finally picked one up. And the Crown graphic I have has that graph lock system on it. And to my knowledge, I thought, okay, Polaroid instant back with the graph lock will work on my Crown graphic with graph lock. But I don't know if the years don't line up or something, or the standards weren't right. But at the moment, I think I'm at the hawk out some of my 4x5.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, nothing that'll affect actually taking a photo, just something to make some clearance. But after that, then I'm kind of in the same scenario where I'm going to have a big camera with the ability to take instant photos. And that's pretty much, hopefully with that, hopefully it's not as much of putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah. I'm going to have a pretty nice, FP100C is a pretty nice, film stock for the most part. Instant film stock, I'd probably say it's the best so far that was relatively reliable and available right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with a 4x5 lens, it's going to be pretty nice. Hopefully, that's the dream.
Dude, I can't wait to see what that looks like and how that shoots. I think that would be really fucking cool to see happen. Where, now you shoot, is it safe to say you prefer to shoot instant film over regular film, or is that just what you're doing at the moment?
I do a lot. Pretty much, the only thing I haven't really gotten into is like the micro formats or the smaller formats under 35. But anything above that, I've pretty much dabbled in. I do a lot of, like today I have like a little point and shoot.
Yeah.
35.
Mm-hmm.
I love these for walking around, kind of informal stuff. I like SLRs. I like medium format. I love medium format. I haven't had the world's best, or not, I haven't had the longest track record with 4x5, but I've done enough to know that I want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then Polaroid, I don't know why, it just has like a special spot in my my kind of toolbox. I call it toolbox. It's just my extra room full of cameras.
Yeah.
But it's got like, I have a special shelf with all these kick-ass Polaroids, from the land cameras to like a nice folding 600 series cameras, and like the old school SX70s. I love them. I don't know. I just, cause all the technology kind of that's taken for, not for granted, but just to get that instant photo is just, it blows my mind every time. And I love getting that instant gratification of a photo.
How many cameras do you have? I think you said you collected cameras, or
I haven't counted in a while.
Okay.
But a fair amount. I got enough to cover pretty much all my bases right now.
Nice.
If I need to something. But
do you have over 15?
Yeah, I'd probably say in the range between,
because that's about how many I have.
Maybe 20, 25.
Okay.
Maybe. I have a lot of Polaroids that I don't use. I have a pretty much I have a lot of SX70s.
Okay.
Because they have, I was kind of picking them up when they were cheap, like $30 or $20 or whatever, in different colors. Because they have like a black, a tan, a silver, and all that stuff.
Okay.
I was picking all those up because they're just cool looking. I got into the Canon FD series lens stuff a little bit, like the old school Canon AE ones, just because my mom got one as a graduation gift coming out of college in 1978 or 9.
Oh wow!
So she got one brand new back in the day, and my grandfather hawked up, I don't know how much it was, like $500 back in the day, or maybe it was like $300. I forgot how much he told me it was. It's always like a different number every time you ask, of course. He hawked up that money for a graduation gift and got her a camera. They took it to Mexico and stuff, and they had a good time with that. And then it basically just sat in the box in the cover and everything, and it's pretty mint. But I didn't want to use her camera up, and so I ended up buying my own, and I got the program. I got an F1, and then I got a few lenses for that. Then I graduated to the EOS series of Canon stuff. Because I had bought a digital back in the day, and then ended up selling that not too long ago. But I like the autofocus. I like if I want to be lazy, but if I want like really nice glass and something I can actually really see and compose. But as far as making an exposure, I'll grab usually like an EOS SLR, and then medium format. I have a couple TLRs. Got a modular Bronica system. I've rented a few TLR, or I rented a Hasselblad back in the day when those were cheap to rent. And then I have a bunch of point and shoots. I got a couple Rolly 35s. I got a Yashica T2. I got the Minolta Hymatics. Those are really nice.
Okay.
But I've been hunting for a nice one of those. I haven't been able to find one. The one I had they have a version that has like the crank, like a manual film advance.
Okay.
And they have ones that are motored, and the motor ones are, I don't know if they're just newer, but they have a little bit better. I always find those in better condition, but they're few and far between.
And probably expensive.
They're a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
And the one I had worked great until one day it just killed it. It just died. And then the manual advanced ones that I've got, they've all had the little quirks too.
Okay.
But whenever I find one, when it was working, it was like pretty good images, like just very like distinct looks coming out of the cameras that I thought they were really cool. So
growing up, was there always cameras involved? There's always photography involved, or just that one time your mom had the graduation gift?
So growing up, I got like a really cheap. I think my parents went to like Best Buy right over here. Because I grew up in the same neighborhood over here.
Okay.
A couple of streets down, but they went to Best Buy, bought like an Olympus digital, maybe like whatever. Back in the day, it was like probably 10 megapixels or 8 megapixels or something, and used that. And I wasn't that like satisfied with it. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Went in the drawer. Nothing that fun. And then I think maybe my sophomore year of high school, I found we were painting a room, so we took everything out, and then when we went to put it back, like I found the AE1 and then an Olympus 35 RC. So she had both those cameras, and I played with. I didn't know anything about film, and I was like, okay, I'll go to Walgreens. I've seen film on the shelves there. Picked up a roll of Fuji, whatever, Walgreens brand. Threw it in there. Didn't know how to set the camera or anything. Didn't know how to set an ISO. Took some photos. Thankfully, it was still in like pretty much the automatic settings.
Okay.
So other than focusing and advancing and taking a photo, I got some photos, but it was very like this is cool, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I didn't know to to look up stuff and trying to master anything. But that was kind of like a dip into what it was like, and I thought it was cool. And then it kind of put photography back. Life was kind of busy, kind of went on with life. And then I think freshman year in college, I got I had a friend who let me borrow her digital DSLR, like a little Canon Rebel or something. And
sorry,
no worries. And then I basically used that because I got into nighttime long exposure photography.
Okay.
So like kind of real cheesy, like light painting and stuff like that. So tripod, set it at f8 or 11, expose for 30 seconds, and then just run out in front of the camera and do like dumb stuff and just draw. And it was digital, so like I just do it over and over and over and over. I got into that, and then I picked up my own digital camera not soon after that, like the newer version of the Rebel, and then just shot as much as I could. But for some reason I was like, this isn't quite like, I'm not getting, I don't know if it's just because you get the bad habits of owning a digital, of just taking photos and not caring, and 1 out of 100 looking good or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not really like taking my time, and I'm not getting a good final product or anything like that. And I was like, all right, I'm not printing any of these. This is all just like a non-tangible thing. I'm like, take the photo, and then it's on my computer, and then now what? Then I'm on to the next thing. And I was like, I kind of want something that's a little more like, I got a photo and here it is. Like I made this. And so I went back and I got the AE1 and I started shooting with that again. And then I actually understood, how to make an exposure that this go around. So my shots actually were like a lot better. I was like, okay, this is a little different than the digital.
Okay.
It's a lot cooler. It's a lot more tangible. It's a lot, it's more of an experience than like just a thing to do, I guess.
And how did you find film? Did you just say one day, fuck it, I'm going to shoot film? Or how did you go about realizing that film was what you wanted to do?
I think it was like, I tried something and it was, well, part of it was also, it was cheaper. So like getting, every year a new digital camera comes out, new digital lens, and it's like top dollar every year. And it's, the only time it goes on sale when it's 5 years old or something like that.
Yes.
And I couldn't keep up with that. And as like a broke college kid, I was like, there's no way I'm going to like ever be able to like attain like really nice gear that way. And if I did, it would be just, I would never have any return on investment. And that's kind of, I don't know if that's the way I grew up, was like, I want to invest in something that's not going to depreciate. So going into film, I saw like, all this gear, and I mean, people talked about like, oh, this used to be really, really nice stuff back in the day. It used to be worth all this money. I'm like, well, what happened? Why is it not worth anymore? And he's like, well, people go to film or I've gone to digital. I'm like, but digital's, it's not the same. It's like, you can still create. It's not like like what's nice about digital is that they make advances, of course. And then your final product gets that much better. So like 10 megapixels to 15 to 18 to 24 or whatever, to 1080p to 2K, 4K. But film's film. So the only thing that you can advance really is your optical designs and lenses and stuff like that. And of course, you can update your film and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just what I loved about it was like how well built all that stuff was, going back to early 50s, with
Yes.
like Crown Graphics, like 1955, like crazy good lenses, crazy good bodies. I like from an engineering standpoint or from like a mechanical thought of mind standpoint that I had, like all that stuff just seemed like this is like so much thought had been put into this camera, and like the quality of product that you can attain still is just so good and it's so cheap. I'm like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple of points there that I've been trying to explain to people for the longest time too, is that one, it is cheaper to get into film photography than it is to get into digital photography with gear. And even if you spend, depending on how much you're going to shoot, your film is just film.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that once upon a time, you could get a consumer-based camera and take as good at pictures as a professional type camera using the exact same film. Granted, as long as the lenses were sharp,
right,
there was no real discernible difference as far as the quality of the sharpness of the picture. Your film stock's the same. Everyone bought the film from the same person or from the same shop and from Kodak or Ilford at the time. So there wasn't this big leap of like, to be a professional photographer, you needed to have the big old Nikon F series sort of stuff where the Nicker mat would have taken just as good a qualities. Of course there's difference in the bodies and what they can do, but within a certain range, you didn't need to hold all that gear. And nowadays it's like, well, you only got a 12 megapixel camera and you need a 1 million pixel camera nowadays and stuff. And,
or you don't have the latest G Master lens or L lens.
And that all that brings you down sort of thing. But it people with the design of those lenses though, and you can adapt any lens to anything nowadays too, but when people want to buy and I was just early on, you heard me talking shit about DSLR lenses too and things like that. But one of the things that I love most about Nikon, and I don't have digital Nikon, but you could fit the old lenses on the new digital bodies,
right,
and still get the highest quality optics as you would if you bought the new lenses that actually fit on there. The autofocus badass lenses that they have nowadays. But people that want to get into photography, still with the quote unquote mill or film mentality, buy an old school film lens, put that on the new digital, and you're still got a high quality glass on a really badass body.
And I mean, you're definitely not wrong. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people out there that have made that discovery, and they're definitely picking up a lot of the old stuff that was considered outdated and maybe grandfathered and out now. Not grandfathered, but like so like for example, like in the cinematic world, a lot of people get a really nice like Zeiss, like the Contax lenses, like the CY mount, like the Contax Yashica mount lenses. They pick those up as fast as they can. I mean, those are great lenses, and then you can adapt those to pretty much any modern DSLR or like mirrorless camera.
Yes.
Probably more than mirrorless nowadays, but I mean, and that kind of sucks for the film guys that want those experience, that quality lens on the original bodies. But I mean, there's definitely a lot of vintage lenses out there that have the look
and have high quality
performance.
When did you decide that making images was something that you would use to express yourself creatively, artistically, or just emotionally? When did you pick up a camera and go, you know what, let's do this for more than just snapshots sort of thing?
I thought it was I kind of noticed a lack with the people around me of like kind of making memories, I guess, or like kind of making something and like growing up, I always liked looking at old photos and stuff like that. And then from like teenage years, hanging out with friends or family, no one, we had like the shitty phones and stuff like that. Other than the phone pictures, no one really had like a tangible quality photo. And that's kind of the gap that I've been filling And then I've just been playing with the the artistic side just to kind of hone my skills a little bit. Not so much to make a name for anything, but just to have fun with it.
Now, just for frame of reference, I'm not trying to. How old are you?
Oh, I'm only 24.
Yeah. So it wasn't like you grew up you grew up basically right when film was basically starting to get phased out.
Yeah.
And so I think it's awesome that you mentioned that there wasn't anything tangible for you to grasp on growing up as far as memories, where you mentioned you are now scanning your mom's photographs into and digitizing them from old film. How is that project going along as far as you noticing maybe the difference between recording an image then as opposed to recording an image now completely on digital?
Well, the one thing I've kind of liked about this process, the only downside I think to film is that we haven't quite figured out the best way to get every single ounce of information from the film. I mean, like modern scanners, like modern consumer grade scanners, nothing like professional. Those obviously can do a lot more than what the average Joe can afford. But even like the nice average Joe consumer scanners, like your top of the line Epsons and stuff like that, they still can't quite get the full information from film. They do a really good job, and I think that's one thing that'll only get better with film still is like the ability to really get all that stuff out. But right now, I mean, you can take, your today's 35 millimeter photo, scan it, and then the same, like a negative from 1975, scan it, and it's going to be just as good. And that's kind of what I like. Like you can, but now with a modern scanner, you can squeeze out all that information from that film back in 1970, 78, that maybe they couldn't get back in the day because they just had it like printed optically or whatever on a little 4x5 or like a 5x7 print. And it's like, oh wow, this is like a beautiful photo.
Yeah.
And we never got to experience it this way. So that's kind of one of the satisfying things, other than of course rekindling old memories.
Yeah.
But for my parents and stuff, or parents and some family members. But that's kind of been the satisfying thing, is just getting the maximum potential with modern technology out of the film from the past.
I just did a couple of days ago, I just recorded a podcast with Aaron Marcus, and he just recently got a job right here down that way and he is what he's doing is he's scanning people's photographs and services, and he's scanning them and digitizing them. And he had this cool story about how he's scanning this guy's images that he took from 1959 or 1951 to 1979, somewhere in there. And he was just noticing like it's a really good, interesting story going on through there. When you scan your mom's memories, is there sort of like maybe a love with the camera or love with film or something that stands out maybe emotionally or under certain context that maybe that because it was on film, even though they didn't realize that digital was coming around, that we kind of take for granted now digitally, with just so many photographs being photographed or being uploaded every day on the internet? Do you see like there's more care in taking a photograph back in what you're noticing or anything?
From what I've seen, I mean, they hired a photographer, so it wasn't like a family member or anything. But from what they were able to do, like a wedding photographer in 1978 versus a wedding photographer today, they probably have the same goal of like capturing, the candid moments and everything like that. But there's definitely like a different type of warmth. And I don't know if it's necessarily just to the film or the film camera, but just the decor of the scenes, the outfits that people wore, the hairdos, the glasses, everything about it. It's hard to say if film is the reason why they look so cool for me. And then of course I can always call my mom and be like, hey, what's the story with this photo? There isn't a whole lot of mystery with it, just because she can like explain every single detail for the most part. At least for the ones she was in and they couldn't remember. But I mean, it's there's definitely like a nice look and a like a warmth to just that film product. But I mean, I think that's the goal of pretty much every photographer.
What? Yeah, I mean, that's what they get paid to do, right?
Yeah.
What? Is there a certain like a project or a certain theme that you think drives your photography or drives your creativity overall that you like? You know, whether it's a landscape, portraits, or anything.
Right now, you know, the thing that I make sure to do is really just taking photos of like more like a long-term documentation of like my life and my like the people I hang out with. That's really kind of what I do it for. I don't really do it, but I do like street photography for fun, and I'll do like portraits for fun, or I'll go find some cool architecture for fun. But that's really not what drives my photography. It's really more, I think nowadays it's been just you know, photographing my cousins growing up, me getting older, me, you know, transitioning from like a college kid to like a young adult, my parents getting older, just kind of just as my life changes, kind of trying to document that, because I think it'll be pretty well appreciated from myself and, you know, from potential kids, I don't know, down the line to see kind of like a timeline. But I definitely do a lot of like goofy projects though too.
Yeah.
Keep it fun.
Now, hopefully, we were talking earlier that you want to be a firefighter in Phoenix area.
Yeah.
Good luck, by the way. Hopefully that comes out. I would think like, and you mentioned you had you had an uncle also as a firefighter. Actually, I'd like, without sounding, you know, mention how I think it's funny that you were saying that you guys have in common is that you realize that you both love to shoot film.
Yeah.
How did that come? How did he find out that you like shooting film too?
So we kind of like, as I mentioned earlier, I started bringing like cameras around to family events like birthdays, and I have a pretty large family for the most part that's all pretty local to the Phoenix area. So we get together for so-and-so's birthday. It's like we got a birthday every month. So that's our time to kind of get together and do the family thing. And over the past couple of years now, about like 4 or 5 years, I bring in like a film camera of some sort, whether it's a Polaroid, 35 millimeter, like a little Super 8 or 8 millimeter camera or something, movie film. And in the beginning, he was like, hey, you know, you taking photos or something like that? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm taking, I give him some detail, some specs or whatever. And he's like, okay. He's like, it's like, you ever shoot slide film? And I'm like, me? I'm like, you know, at the time I was kind of afraid of slide film, and it was kind of different. And, I couldn't do like, it was a little different workflow. So I was like, not too much. He's like, oh, well, back in the day, he explained like back in the day, I used to, when he was a firefighter, he would, on his off days, he would ride at the fire station, and he would go and take night scenes on slides and do like long exposure photography. And he's like, yeah, I got really into that. He got published in some photography magazines. I'm sure he has all that stuff still. I haven't really, he never showed it to me. Just he's always traveling still. But he's like, that's cool. He's like, well, you should check out some of my slides one day. And he's given me some books over the years, and he hasn't really like pushed me in a direction or anything, but he's always curious to see, like, he's like, huh. He was totally blown away that like there was even a viable film community still, or like film products and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody was mentioning that the older generation is the one who, funny enough, shot most of their life on film, is the one that's more or less letting film go and not realizing that there's this like resurgence of film coming back, which I think is kind of funny. But
I think back then they, you know, from what I can tell, or from what I've kind of deduced, having film as an only option, it's like it's like carrying a weight everywhere. It's like it's it's going to be work, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't know if I want to work like that anymore all the time. Versus me being somebody, it's like, oh, okay, here's an easy way to take digital photography, and just just hit the button, takes a photo for you, all that blah 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 blah. But you don't put in the work, and you kind of want to put in the work. It's like I want to be able to put in the work and take a photo, think about the exposure, compose a shot, get it, develop it, and then you can go even further and try and print that photo.
Yeah,
and that's a whole other bag of worms, and that's a lot of work. And I think for me, growing up, and it's like having things kind of so easy to take a photo, it was kind of fun, and it's drawing to have to work for it a little bit. I didn't like just kind of getting an easy photo and like it looking good enough or okay or looking cool. It looked great. It was very easy, low, kind of a low thing to achieve to me. It didn't feel as satisfying once I got like a really nice photo versus having to work my ass off to try and get a darkroom print to work and 30 tries before I finally looks good. Like that's a very satisfying outcome.
Do you develop your own film and stuff?
Right now I develop only my 4x5 by myself, just because I only shoot like a couple sheets at a time, and then I'll just mix up some stuff and do that. But for 35 and 120, I'll take it down to the local lab. I don't want to like name brand anything, or like I don't want to like make any business for anyone or anything. Just
you can only name brand if it's PFR.
Oh, okay.
If it's Tempe, you can't say it. I'm kidding.
I want to take it to PFR, but I'm waiting for Dan to get a little bit more settled, because he's trying to figure out. And I love Dan. He's an amazing guy. Amazing thing that he's like undertaking right now. I support him as much as I can. But as soon as he gets to a little bit like a consistent proficiency, then I'll probably transition all my stuff to him. I take my slide stuff to him, or I'll take like my 4x5 color stuff to him, just like the weird stuff. But I don't want to bog him down with like, because black and white's easy. C41, smaller format, like medium format, and 35 relatively easy. It's a known science now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like, he's got so much to worry about that I don't want to make him do my busy work. You know what I mean? I consider it kind of a busy work to develop a little bit. I don't get too fancy with like cooking or like experimenting with development times. I'd rather the consistent standard and then play with my cameras versus like or play with like my darkroom times versus like adding variables in my film. So I usually just take it to the lab and then pay whatever, and they take care of it.
Now I think that you mentioned you have an engineering background, and I think one of the things that I love about photography is that it's a nice combination of not just artistic proficiency and creativeness, but you need to learn the instrument a little bit, where it's like a really good. You have to. There's a lot of understanding of how to get exposure and what all the numbers on the camera mean is. When you started to learn that, do you think it was easier for you to learn on that side than maybe someone who's not technically savvy that still, I mean, I don't want to talk shit, but I do know people that have been using the camera for years and still don't understand what the numbers mean or anything like that. And it's just kind of frustrating to where like, hey, I wonder if there's an easier way that you've come up with to try to explain something like that to someone than I have. Just to try to teach somebody about how to use the camera a little better.
That's kind of that's also a big part of what draws me to film photography is a good portion of the cameras are fully mechanical. And coming from like, like an engineering / like mechanical mind, I feel like that's how I like to describe myself. It makes it pretty easy for me to like understand, like different types of curtain fabrics, shutter speeds, like the system of an SLR, the system of a rangefinder, a system of a TLR, like all the, like knowing like where your focal plane is and how f-stops your aperture works and manipulates light, knowing like your scale focus, all that stuff, definitely like it really sinks the hooks on, like keeps me interested in, because it's not as rocket science as like a modern digital camera. Not to say that it's unattainable to know how a modern digital camera works, but knowing how a Canon AE1 works, or a Canon F1, something like a Leica M3, something fully mechanical, is very easy for me to understand, because it's all mostly gear driven and it's just known facts. There's no mystery behind it, which I kind of enjoyed a lot. But as far as like trying to get people to wrap their heads around that, I mean, it just depends on the person.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a little different than, I keep bringing up, like, because my other experience is like playing guitar. I think that a lot of people just fall away with photography just because they can't seem to grasp the last little bit of how to correctly expose something, and because there just doesn't seem to be an easier way to teach them about how what all these numbers mean. What's the shutter number? What's the f-stop number? Why should you focus something here? What's hyperfocal distance focusing? And and it's just like, I wish there was an easier way for me to teach someone that, other than it almost takes an obsession for someone to want to learn what the hell that is, as opposed to,
you got to be pretty motivated to want to learn that stuff. I think that's why a lot of cameras went to, there's always the professional series of camera that's, you got to make all the choices, and then they have like the automatic cameras out there, because there's some people that don't care, but they want the photo, but they just don't care on how they get it.
Yeah, and it's like, in this day and age, even the phones are getting so much better now that it's just, and they got these nice little portrait mode phones, so that now you get this nice little fall off on the focus. And I'm like, well, shit, okay, yeah, that works.
Yeah,
great. Is there something else that that you use to fuel your creativity, aside from photography, or something that it maybe works in relation to your photography?
I used to do a lot of like cruising, skating, like skating around. That gets me out and about, and I kind of transitioned to like riding motorcycles, getting around the town, and
nice,
and seeing. That kind of. I mean, I always kept an eye out for like what would be cool to come back and maybe shoot or something like that, and just being able to travel a little bit in like my local area. Because when I was living in Tempe, a lot of it was just huffing around on foot or on a skateboard. And that works for a little bit, but once you've kind of, because, Phoenix and Tempe and the Greater Valley area, there isn't a whole lot of areas that have a lot of foot traffic. I mean, Tempe's got pretty good foot traffic as far as like that, like being able to go to the same places and continually taking photos without them being the exact same. Downtown Phoenix kind of has that sometimes. It's really like event based. But now that I've kind of like explored my local, like, 5-mile radius or 10-mile radius, I've kind of been pushing out a little bit more. And that's kind of where maybe like the landscape stuff kind of has been coming in a little bit more, hitting the trails and hiking and doing all that stuff, or taking the bike up to South Mountain, or taking the bike to the lakes, like the Saguaro and Roosevelt and Salt River, or up in the North Valley, that kind of area. I mean, it opens the world up a little bit more as far as what I can take a photo of, and that kind of keeps it fresh. And then I also kind of gotten a little bit more into vintage movie film collecting. Yeah, and that kind of keeps things cool too.
Like buying already processed film stuff from
like people's home movies and stuff.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Where do you pick those up?
I got a source.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's a little competitive. Just because.
Really?
It's okay. It's like, so I'll kind of give you kind of the knowledge that I got on the subject right now.
Okay.
But, so basically back in the day, you had your 8mm film and then your 16mm film. Like I'm talking about like 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
You had your 8mm and your 16mm. So like if mom wanted or dad wanted a video camera, he went and bought an 8mm. And if dad was an aficionado or like a wealthier guy, he went out and got the 16mm
Okay.
and the 6mm projector. And bigger format. It's a lot of money, especially back then. And you basically had those two formats for making movies at home. And then of course Hollywood had the 35 stuff, but and then I think like 70, maybe 60s, 70s, Super 8 kind of came out. And then that technology took off. Basically it's 8mm just with a little bit wider gate. Or it's 8mm, different sprocket, spacing and a little bit wider of an aspect ratio. So it's still 8mm film, but you get actually full use of the negative versus having a little bit on the side. And then of course they came in cartridges instead of being on a roll-to-roll system.
Okay.
And then I personally don't get into the Super 8 stuff just because I want to be able. I do make my own 8mm stuff and 16mm stuff, but I haven't kind of put it out there yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get better at it first.
Okay.
But I've also been collecting 8mm and 16mm. And in that world, back in the day, they used to have, I don't know if you ever had this in your classrooms, but my parents always had, when back in school, they'd roll out a projector.
Oh yeah.
And 16mm film.
Yeah.
And then, project it on the wall or like a little silver screen. And you'd have education films like that, like a 400-foot roll of like whatever, dinosaurs or something cool.
Oh yeah. In the 80s, we still had those.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I've actually picked up a lot of local stuff like that, like from like Paradise Valley School District. I've got like 30 rolls of those.
Okay.
Just cool stuff. And it's so fun to like look back because 16mm is actually like a really high quality for what it is, like a really high quality final product. If you get, a nice projector and it's taken on a nice production camera, like you can get a really nice image out of it.
Okay.
Like you can get still a lot of music videos today are shot on 16mm still. Cause you can get, a modern camera, modern lenses, and they're like very beautiful, but it's on 16mm film. So you're not killing yourself with 35 as far as like money goes.
Uh-huh.
But you're still getting that great film look.
That aesthetic.
And, but I've really collected, like for example, I have probably like 12 rolls of film from one guy whose family gave it to let's say thrift store.
Mm-hmm.
And the box has 12 rolls of film dating from 1942 to 1955 of just him and his home movies in like Maryland or something. And I mean, it was so cool to like, I went out and bought a projector. I got a 16mm projector and a couple of 16mm projectors and like a couple 8mm projectors because they break.
Okay.
It's cheaper to get a new one than to fix it up. But you project it on the wall and you get like this is somebody's tangible memories from 1942. Who knows how many people have seen this movie? Probably not very many.
Yeah.
And it's like it's Kodachrome, and so it's like perfect still. I mean, a little dusty. But like the colors are crazy, and you're seeing like soldiers walking down the street and like down to, like in Maryland somewhere, and I'm like
wow,
it's like a time capsule.
So let me just so that I can wrap my head around this. So it would be like if I decided to start collecting somebody's old VHS tapes that they have that of their home movies. Mm-hmm. You're just collecting their home movies, but shot on film. Right. That's amazing, man. And without trying to get to, what's the most probably interesting thing you've come across in somebody? You haven't come across a snuff film or anything like that. No?
Actually, now that you mention it, there has been an occasion where I've on foot, I went into like a local Goodwill, and they had like a slide projector like a a really kind of an old one that's not that great. And I was looking at it and I'm like, what? There's like a reel. I'm like, the reel doesn't go on the slide. I'm like, obviously somebody just did this together and then gave it to Goodwill. And like I held it up to the light and it was a it was like probably Kodachrome again or something, or Ektachrome. And like I see like a pair of butt cheeks. I'm like, no way. And I start laughing and I'm like, no joke, like in the Goodwill there's like this lady standing next to me. I'm like, hey, does that look like a pair of butt cheeks to you? And she just looks at me, she's like, and then she just gave me like a dirty look. And I'm like, it totally is. And like I totally bought all that stuff and we played it back. Me and my girlfriend played it back and I'm like, this is totally like a snuff film.
Wow.
But it wasn't like it was differently produced.
Okay.
Because there was like 3 people and then a cameraman. So it wasn't, and lighting, you could tell there was lighting. There was zooms and fade ins and fade outs. So it wasn't just like, somebody on a tripod with a trigger release going.
Okay.
But and that actually made me look into like, what that market was like back then. And I guess back in the day that, you go into your local, camera shop and like wherever you go to buy your movie film, and it's like, all right, you could buy like condensed versions of movies on 8mm. So there's a lot of like Charlie Chaplin and like comedy skits on like little 2-minute reels or something. And then so like that catalog that you could pick those out of, you could be like, hey, I want to get XXX or whatever, and then he'll like, okay, and then he'll pull out a different catalog, and then of course you got no like preview or anything, so it's like, all right, what title looks good? Okay. And then you order it and you can either come back, pick it up, or they send it to your house or something. And that's pretty much, that was kind of like the snuff market back in the day. Nice. For 8mm. Of course, this is before like,
but no one's killing anybody or anything like that.
Oh no.
Or doing, snuff. Like, you've seen that movie 8mm with Nicolas Cage? Oh, I haven't. Oh, it's dude, it's a pretty decent movie actually, but it's 8mm, and they hired this one guy to make a snuff film. Is people that it's a film. It's supposed to be a film of a murder taking place.
Oh, I guess it's not really snuff so much as like a smut.
Smut, yeah. No,
my bad.
Yeah, no, this is a snuff film, and this dude, it's a great film actually. It's but it's 8mm because somebody made an 8mm film on snuff. That's what they call it. Where they killed somebody on film.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, as opposed to like. If you like home porn or something like that would be kind of funny to.
And that's actually got a pretty good market too, as far as resale. Oh yeah, I don't know what I haven't looked into why the demand's so high, but I was like, it's definitely, you could sell that stuff. I don't know if it's just because of vintage, that category, or just like relative limited edition or something. Yeah,
there's probably like an old Marilyn Monroe sort of thing out there that it's highly sought after.
Probably,
I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah, awesome. Or somebody, maybe some like celebrity or B-list celebrity of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they used to make. Well, obviously, at one point, porn was being made on film one day. I mean, that's what that Boogie Nights thing is all about, right? Right. The switch on over to video from that. What? So you have these movie cameras right now that I one day I'm going to see how to develop those. How would you digitize those? You can't do that at home, can you?
Not not in a high quality sense. So that's kind of the post-production issue with movie film right now, is what to do with developing and what to do with scanning. The highly motivated will either get, depending on your format, you can get developing tanks for movie film. But it's definitely, as you can imagine, like a 36 shot of 35 is kind of a pain in the butt already. So 100 feet is going to be a mess. Yeah. Not a mess, but for drying and, dust prevention and stuff like that. But the highly motivated, they get it done. As far as scanning goes, there's kind of what's known as like a telecine, which is you just project it on the wall and then you have like a digital recording of it. But I mean, it's not the best. It's if you need it, you can get it done. Okay. But usually there's definitely like there's professional labs that'll scan, like they're set up for scanning movies, so they'll have a big reel-to-reel system with like a pickup head, and then they run it through that and they scan it, and that's how you get your best product. And that's what your modern production is. Like your movie, your full on Hollywood movies and music videos, they send that out to somebody who can get like a 4K resolution out of it. But that's expensive.
I can imagine it being somebody will come up with some sort of strategy, I think, soon to be able to
hopefully if it gains popularity, I think there'll probably somebody who develops something a little more economical. But right now there's some like consumer products out there that'll scan your like old school Super 8 or 8 millimeter, but it's still not the best. It's like frame to frame. It's like they'll do frame to frame, and it's like this little kind of almost toy.
Yeah.
But like I said, if there's a market, but for me right now, I'm really so I have the cameras and I have film, and I've made a couple of movies, just kind of funny random things, nothing worth showing. But my intention is just to project it, straight up project it. Like, maybe I'll get it scanned, but I'll scan it. I mean, I'm not gonna scan it to put it on YouTube. I'm just gonna scan it so I have a copy of it. That way, when you only have so many cycles of projection before
it deteriorates.
You put wear and tear on it.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm playing this thing every day. But so I plan on, if I ever want to show it, just project it. That's why I got the projectors. What
do you think got you into trying to collect these movies and getting into it? Just besides curiosity.
Still, it's a different realm of film photography, I guess, for me. And I've kind of just ventured into every single aspect I can. Again, mechanically fascinating cameras. Fascinating solutions to I mean, you gotta imagine the film movie makers are the most dedicated of the film people.
Yes.
Like they're doing a lot of work to get an image, or in this case a movie. I mean, their lenses, the mechanisms that they use in the cameras, the movements, their lighting, those are probably the highest. I mean, you got to be a really good probably photographer to even think about wanting to become like a cinematic photographer.
I've said it once, I'll say it again. Cinematographers are the best photographers.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I mean, it grows my knowledge on exposing film, capturing images. And I think it's cool. It's definitely weird, but I mean, as far, not weird, but like very niche, but I love it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier that you try to see just about every film that's been shot on film.
Modern
film.
Yeah,
that's been shot on film.
I try to keep up with if I catch wind of like a movie coming out that was shot on film, I'll definitely go and try and see it, regardless of like reviews and stuff.
Okay.
But I'm not the biggest movie buff in the world, but like I enjoy definitely like like going to the movies all the time.
Yeah,
it's a different experience. But I definitely seek out the film ones, even if it's like not something in my particular genre. But that's kind of been going like the past 2 or 3 years.
What do you think you noticed from those compared to the one shot on digital? I mean, I know you're probably not going to the movie theaters to see the Fast and the Furious,
right?
As opposed to, I think just about everything Quentin Tarantino makes is on film still,
right?
Is there like a certain subtlety that you see between the two, or just overall knowing that it's just shot on film really it motivates you and excites you to see it?
I think that's pretty much it. It's just another reason to go see it. Because what I'll do, the last movie that I saw on film, projected on film, was what was that movie called? It's kind of rare, unfortunately, still to be able to go see a projected, like IMAX kind of thing, where it's on. I saw a couple
on a real
like a real projector.
Okay,
like 70 millimeter film. What was it? What's the one? Dunkirk, I believe.
Okay.
I think I saw that one in 70 millimeter.
Okay.
And I mean, it was a pretty, not surreal experience, but it's definitely different.
Okay.
You get, I don't know if it's just knowing that fact, you get into the movie a little bit more. It's like almost a placebo effect, a little, where it's like, like you're a little more invested in trying to capture every single detail in this movie versus it's like, oh, this is a nice movie, whatever. Let's watch the scary movie and get into the plot, or whatever.
I think you actually kind of made me want to, I think, do that from now on. Actually go see or try to seek out at least the last films that are projected and actually shot on film than just going to see Avengers Part 144 sort of thing.
Episode 23.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, and my nephew went to go see it. He's a big Star Wars fan, and a lot of people were like, you know what, fuck this movie sort of thing.
Really?
So I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But
I'm into Star Wars.
Yeah,
I went and saw it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really into. I mean, I've been there since the beginning, but obviously, it's just like sad to see where it's just not as. Like the way that I see the Star Wars thing is like those first movies inspired generations to come afterwards, and it was like, well, if somebody saw episodes 7, 8, 9, would that inspire them to see or want to trigger an entire franchise after that? Right. And I keep coming back to the answer to be a no.
Right.
I don't think they're that exciting as The Empire Strikes Back,
right?
Which is still my favorite one out of it. Still the plot twist to kill all plot twist is in Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what are there certain cinematographers or directors that stand out to you as far in the movie industry that still shoot film that really make a mark as to like, dude, every time that person shoots a film or makes a film, I gotta go see it?
Not as of recently, I haven't educated myself enough on directors and movies like that I keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
I've really kind of started to delve back into vintage films. That kind of like, I want to start at the beginning and kind of understand the development of like why we have the movies we have today, and like what we're allowed to produce. So like actually not like a week ago, I finally watched A Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
Like I just watched it and I was just like blown away of like I mean, I think the movie came out in like 1976 or something.
Yeah. So somewhere around there.
And I was like 1976.
Maybe even earlier, I don't remember.
Like, they came up with like this idea and like they were able to shoot this and like, produce it and put it out there. And it just blows me away, like what they're able to do, and like the ideas. Like I watched Taxi Driver not that long ago too, and I'm kind of going back and more of the serious films, I guess.
Yeah. And
watching the more like game changer movies before I really start to like try to pick my modern favorites.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick was a photographer first. So when you see his movies, there's always this aesthetic, a visual aesthetic, as far as from his photography standpoint. Certain things are very perfectly framed, sort of thing. And when you watch most of his movies, they're going from 2001, Space Odyssey to even Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah,
there's always this beautiful imagery going around. And The Shining too. I mean, I don't like the movie The Shining so much, and it's got really nothing to do with anything other than I just visually it's amazing, but as far as what that movie's about and the plot, I think it's anyway. I got my own thing, but again, it's they're all aesthetic, even from the very beginnings of his movies, where they're amazing. And if I may suggest to samurai movies are especially there's so many great directors and DPs out there, but obviously if you need to start with samurai movies and getting a great aesthetic, it's anything by Akira Kurosawa is
with K or a C?
Akira Kuro Kurosawa, which by the way is where the Star Wars franchise comes from. I don't mind telling you, it was the Star Wars was stolen by an Akira Kurosawa movie. Yeah, I said it. Star Wars fans, Clint Eastwood is only Clint Eastwood because of Akira Kurosawa. movies like For a Few Dollars and For a Few Dollars More. Those are direct Akira Kurosawa ripoffs. There's a couple other ones too. The other one that comes to plot, I was trying to tell somebody the other day, is that the Denzel Washington movie where the name, the plot just Courage Under Fire. That's an Akira Kurosawa knockoff movie. Nobody believes me, but if you watch Rashomon, you'll know exactly where they pulled that plot from. And of course, but he's one of the best filmmakers ever. But again, his cinematography in his movies, still the best.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, if you're into that, if you want to start somewhere,
I'm definitely like whenever I got like downtime, I'm watching a old movie.
Yeah, and again, I'm killing a lot of Japanese directors that deserve to be in the same sentence as Akira Kurosawa is. But when you type in best samurai movies, you can start there, and they're all listed there. Akira Kurosawa always comes on top, but it's the list is a good list, and they're not just samurai movies, but anyway, as far as cinematography and of course being shot on film. And if you haven't seen The Hustler yet, one of my favorite movies ever shot is The Hustler. It's just, I think it won an Academy Award for cinematography too, but
that's one gambling, right?
That's Paul Newman playing pool.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, he should have won the Academy Award for that, but he didn't. Scorsese made The Color of Money with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman again. Paul Newman was the same actor, just that much older. And they gave him the Academy Award for that movie. Basically only because they should have given it for him the first time around. The Color of Money is a decent movie, but it really wasn't. Paul Newman's done better acting jobs than that movie. That's all I'm saying. But they gave him the Oscar anyway, probably, but just because they probably fucked him over from the first one. But yeah, I mean, as far as the movie goes, those are. Again, I think Scorsese is also a cat that likes to shoot on film a lot too.
I think so. But I mean, definitely has like the track record of being on film. I'm sure they maybe had like a decision to whether transition to digital or not. But
yeah, and I think actually the last film that he did that one on the Netflix. He's got the Irishman, and I think in that film, I don't think that one's shot on film. I need to double check, but it is heavily. They got a lot of special effects on them because they wanted to show De Niro and Pesci, and maybe in a little bit of Al Pacino. They wanted to make him look younger because there's a lot of
flashbacks.
We're going back to, you were going back here. The movie starts here. They're old guys, and then they flash back to when they first started out, and they wanted to clean up their face a little bit. Even though I'm not sure that was all necessary, but they did it. So
that one's on Netflix.
Yeah,
I'll check that one out.
So, are you? Do you plan on ever having some sort of art show or art showings, or trying to or shoot for somehow having a display of your photography or your work at any time?
At the moment, I don't know. It's definitely I'm not the photos I take right now. I'm not really taking to show too much. That's why I haven't like been too active on like the gram as far as posting stuff. I'll post up random little snaps or something, but nothing that tells a story or anything that. So I think the only photos I would want to show are the ones that would tell a story or something interesting. And those ones aren't. I don't think the photos I take are that interesting to people outside of my family.
Yeah.
Quite yet.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially, with the care you take and having I noticed that there's a certain also composition that is analytical and geometric that doesn't necessarily apply to people who don't have a background in computers, math, and science, and things like that too. I mean, because that's, again, composition is amazing. Do you have an urge, or do you, given how old you are, how young you are, better phrased, do you have an urge to try to speak out and try to tell people more about shooting film than they know about, or just in general, as opposed to like, hey man, you know what, digital, your phone is cool, but you should try film? Is there like any sort of motivation to try to push film with your particular age group at all?
I think I don't verbally push it. I think when I show up places with like a Polaroid or something, and I take a photo and I hand them the photo, and they're like, I can keep this. And that really sets a fire in people. It's like, oh, I want to take photos on Polaroids now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really go out and like preach and say it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah,
because it's definitely not modern. It's not clean. It's not sharp. Like, it's not always the sharpest thing. So you really gotta push the tangibility of it if you're gonna push it. And it's not, I'm not a real preachy guy anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just the actions that I do and sharing and being more like a not a giving person, but like, I'll give you the print or whatever,
mm-hmm.
or like the Polaroid, versus me keeping it and like, oh, thanks, and then putting it in my pocket. Like, I'd rather share the experience and create the memory versus like, oh, this will be great for a show in 6 months or something like that. And I think, I've definitely converted a lot of the people I hang out with to try different parts of film photography.
Okay.
But they were already like, dipping their toe in the water.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, have you tried this? Or have you tried that? Like at the last, this new year, I literally just straight up gave somebody, or not gave, but like, I gave a friend, like, here, try this TLR. I'm not going to use it for another 5 months probably anyways.
Okay.
I'm not going to miss it. And I shot the roll. I finished the roll. I was like, yeah, if you want to play with a TLR, have fun. He's like he's like college freshman. He's probably like 19.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he's not going to have the money to go buy. It's not a nice camera, like a very expensive camera, but like, it's just one less hurdle for them to jump, and low investment, low risk kind of thing. And I'll plant the seed that way versus like saying like, oh, you need to go out and buy X amount of film and this camera or this lens or this brand or anything.
Yeah, I'd
rather them figure that out. But that's just me. I think there's plenty of people out there that do that kind of thing already.
Yeah, that's for sure. We can go down to PFR at any time and do that and have someone tell you, hey, you should do this, or at least be accessible to preach, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you, from your viewpoint, do you see film going away anytime soon, or are you worried at all about the finite life with film? Because I'm very interested in your point of view, being as young as you are.
Did you get a chance to watch that NBC Out of Left Field doc thing, like 10-minute video on YouTube?
No.
After this, you should check it out.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. It's just like a little mainstream recognition for like from a major network towards like the whole film culture.
Mm-hmm.
One thing they kind of mentioned that they asked that same question to some other film photographer person.
Okay.
They were like, what do you see the future of film looking like? And one thing they kind of mentioned was how kind of unsustainable film is to a degree,
mm-hmm.
as far as the chemicals used to develop, the chemicals used to produce, the amount of water used to create an image, both developing and then like printing. And it's definitely got its challenges in a world where we use a lot of things. Unfortunately, for me, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. It's not going away next year. It's not going away in the next 10 years. But 20 years, and I can imagine things becoming a lot tighter as far as usage and chemical restrictions and stuff like that, because that's kind of what killed Kodachrome, and it's kind of what killed Polaroid pack film and Polaroid Spectra, or like the original integral film was like the chemicals they used and the processes they used were kind of rough on the environment. Okay. And it's kind of what killed it, and that's why the new stuff is different, because it physically, or I don't know if legally or physically, they can't replicate it because they're just not allowed to anymore. So there's definitely gonna have to be some advances on making it a little more sustainable. Like, kind of one thing that people don't really think about in the film community is like maybe changing that film can. You know how like you get a box of film. I guess if you're not getting the 100-foot rolls, you know, if you buy the individual cartridge, it comes in a cardboard box and it comes in a plastic container and it's sealed, right? And you need the seal for the moisture and stuff like that. But I mean, if there's a way to change that plastic to like, I don't know. I mean, they got to do something like recycled plastic, or and if they brand that, and they brand like the cardboard being like recycled cardboard or some shit, like I think that would kind of help. That would help a lot. You know, if they come up with some sort of way to maybe change your developing, but I mean, that's a whole chemistry thing that I don't have a huge background in.
Yeah.
And that's for me, the foreseeable challenges of sustainable film. I think the demand's going to be there. I don't think that's going to go away. I think there's going to be a demand in film. The film cameras themselves, that's going to be a question mark.
Yeah, that's,
you know what I mean? Like
see, you just brought up a whole different perspective, because I was more hung up on the cameras. Eventually there's going to be no one left to fix the cameras.
Yeah.
And that's what I was hung up on. But it's funny because, yeah, from your viewpoint and the viewpoint about being sustainable as far as just on the basics of helping the environment out, and using recycled materials. And by the way, I hand roll all my film, so I'm already 35 millimeter recyclable.
There you go.
But the other stuff I don't.
That might be the future then.
And it's just like, you know, yeah, I didn't think of any of that other stuff too. I mean, when you buy 4x5 sheets, that's less stuff. That's more environmentally friendly. When you buy, but still, when you buy the 120 rolls and the 35 millimeter rolls,
for the most part, it's all individually wrapped.
Yeah, and I didn't even think about that. So
I mean, if you're doing the cassette thing and you get a 100-foot roll, you're already kind of taking that out of the equation.
Yeah.
But for the large amount of, I think, especially as a beginner, that's not going to be the route for people coming into this.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to be buying, I mean, that's probably like 3 or 4 years into shooting film photography. You start to think about how, or unless you're really like frugal from the get-go.
Yeah.
But once you've committed to like a film stock you like, or a film stock you can justify buying, or whatever the circumstance, that I think that's kind of well into the road of shooting film before people get into bulk loading and stuff like that.
Yeah. And which brings another interesting question again from your standpoint. What would you tell someone who wants to get started in film photography that would be essentially in your generation? Is there something that sticks out in your mind that says, all right, well, if you're going to start film photography, you should do this?
I think you should, if you're going to start film photography, you should be, what's the word? Realistic with your expectations.
Okay.
You know, understand, you know, kind of have an idea of what you want to get out of it beforehand. Because if you just go in thinking like kind of blind and like uneducated about it, you know, there's a pretty good potential to be disappointed a little. I mean, that's kind of how I first started with it, was like, you know, I put film in a film camera when I was a teenager and shot some film, and the photos looked like crap. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, this is a lot of work. I mean, that was when I was like a little punk kid.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a lot of work. And I kind of, whatever. And I put it back. But if you educate yourself a little bit and kind of have an idea of what you want to do, whether it's you want to take photos at a party and like, you know, have those cool photos, like the flash and like a wide angle, or if you want to do portraits, or if you want to do this or that, Or I mean, of course, everyone can dabble in everything as you go, but you kind of I think it's good to have a game plan first. Like say like, okay, I just want to start small, get like a little SLR, a little K1000 or whatever manual camera you can get your hands on for under $50-$60. Get, it doesn't have to be the most expensive black and white negative or color negative film. I mean, I love Kodak Gold or something like that.
Yeah.
And then, think about what you shoot. And I think that's the best way to be satisfied with getting into it.
Nice. Have you seen or have you noticed that have other things opened up for you that that you probably wouldn't have noticed or probably wouldn't have gone into if you didn't have your camera or if you didn't have a photography background? Is there some sort of other world or something like that opened up?
I would say just this film community is a whole nother world that a lot of people won't be able to experience, unfortunately. Just because it's just the state of it right now being relatively few and far between. I mean, there's definitely people that know what film is, and there's people that like shoot a film, but then there's the people that like want to be engaged in like a film community. And that's something that I wouldn't have. I mean, I've got. It's really nice when you have, similar people that are into the same things, but that are motivated still.
Yes.
I mean, everyone likes basketball or sports, whatever, but not everyone. I mean, it's like going to like the park and playing the same. That my dad was really into going to like the local park and just getting all sweated up and playing basketball till like 10 p.m. at night every Saturday.
Okay.
And you learn the same people, you get in the same community. I remember some of these guys that he would hang out with, and my older brother, they're still friends today, just because they used to play ball every Saturday back in the day.
Yeah.
And, they're just like, they're into the same things, and they were, motivated people, that are into the same stuff. And I think that's really like a nice thing to have, regardless of whether you're into, film or like, say you're like, a drag strip guy or like, a movie buff or something like that.
Yeah.
Just something that you're into that you can kind of get into the community that isn't like a toxic community.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't about, who's got the best, who's got the most amount of money. It isn't like a big competition, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun place to be a part, fun thing to be a part of.
Do you think that being part of that community or a film community, as it brought you further along in film that you think you would have been, or even if you would have found yourself that farther along, did something like that facilitate, aside from having fun with other people, what do you think the community ended up doing for you specifically for your film photography?
I think it just shows me a better variety of what's out there.
Okay.
I'd stumble along and discover things as I go. But learning about X camera or the specs of this camera, or like discovering this vintage film stock, that kind of thing, I think that's helped a lot. Just because people are into like different people are into like the small nuances. Like for me, I'm into like the vintage cinematography stuff. And, somebody coming along is like, hey, have you ever, anything about 16 millimeter? I'm like, oh boy, do I know anything about 16 millimeter?
Mm-hmm.
And it helps. And it's just a better like commonwealth of knowledge. I think it's opened me up to a lot more cameras, and that's good and bad, because now I like got to buy all these cameras and like play with them.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I think it's a way better benefit than, there's like zero negative to it, to me.
Yeah, it's better than being out there on your own.
Yeah.
So what's the next camera you're going to buy that you're looking at?
Next camera? I do a lot of opportunity purchases where it's like, okay, this is a really nice camera at a really good price. I'll pick it up now. I'll have my fun with it, and I'll shelf it. And in like 6 months, I'll be like, okay, am I using it? No. And then I'll pass it on, or I'll sell it off to the next person. I'm not making a business out of this or anything like that. But it's enough to keep the ball rolling, you know. Some cameras I'll buy and I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna sell this camera. This camera's amazing. But like this camera, you know, like a little point shoot. Yeah. It's cool. It's definitely not. This is like you know, this is, to me, it's like a time bomb. So I want to get this in as many people's hands as I can, just because it's like electronic. It's hard to fix. It's plastic, but it makes good photos. So I want to have my fun with it, and then I'll probably sell this off to the next person that can have fun with it.
Nice.
And then just keep it going. But there's some cameras out there that I like definitely want to keep. As far as next camera goes, I don't know. I'm kind of cool with what I got right now. I probably want to get a really nice modular 6x6 medium format camera, or a metered Leica M film camera.
All right, I'm trying. Who makes the 6x6? You're talking about one with backs and one with
like a Hasselblad or something like that, maybe.
Okay,
but they're getting out of hand now, and I feel like I've missed the train a little.
Yeah,
but I have a bunch of TLRs, and I got a 6x7 medium format camera. I just really love the 6x6 frame.
Yeah, me too.
And the problem is with the TLRs are, I don't like the fact that I'm limited to the lens, and I don't like the fact that I'm limited to whatever films in the body. But I don't want like an RZ, like a 6.7 with like a 6.7, like a 6x6 back. Like I'm really looking at like either like a nice low key Hasselblad or like a nice maybe Bronica.
Okay.
But also maybe like a Mamiya 6 or something. But
I have an RC 67 and I love it. It's too bad it's just a fucking tank.
Yeah.
But I was looking into 6x6 backs because I got a Yashica and I got the Mamiya C220 too, and but those backs, I like you, I think I missed the boat on those because they're fucking stupid expensive. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, this is a 21st century. Who the fuck is still shooting with these, right? And
I was I was like, oh, you know, RZ67, RB67, you know, they're like, okay, they're cool. They seem to be like, people buy them, like they're probably okay. And then I really got into like seeing good photos from those cameras and like those lenses. I mean, of course, it's just a lens, but it's like, whoa, these are great cameras. Yeah, I kind of missed that one, but I mean, just because I was into like Rolleiflexes and TLRs and stuff, and I have a pretty good Bronica 6.7 camera, that I was able to get pretty early in my collection at a pretty good price, and I pretty much just use that, but I keep circling back to 6x6. I don't know if it's because I like getting 12 frames. I like being able to print 6x6. It's like I like the square. But as far as, and I don't know if it's because it's few and far between, but even the Bronica 6x6 backs, I can't even find one on eBay. And if I do find one, it's like $250.
Yeah.
But usually because it's like brand new. But like I can't find anything. It just sucks.
Yeah, it's funny how that
yeah,
it's crazy. I think like everyone, and the fact that fucking film too is like the 220 film is stupid expensive right now, and it's just like, dude, why is it that expensive? I don't get it. I'm so angry at like all this vintage stuff, and I have a love-hate relationship with like hipsters because they're really the ones that brought film back. They're like, oh my god, it's so cool to shoot film, and like I think they probably single-handedly brought back Kodak.
Yeah,
and I think they're trying to bring back the Fuji, the Acros.
Acros 2, I think is back in swing right now.
But at the same time, they are the ones driving these prices up to crazy, boutique style prices where it's just fucking film. You shoot it once and it's done.
Yeah.
No matter what you shoot. And it's just like, no, it's like.
I mean, there's people making the market. I mean, there's people out there. It's like, okay, this is something I can make some money on, and I've seen that on Instagram a lot. The people that it's like, oh, okay, I can support myself on flipping cameras or buying up all the nice cameras from grandma and grandpa's, and and getting them, cleaning them up, and then flipping them for huge markups. But I mean, I'm sure that's with everything, and I'm sure that's happened back in the past too. Yeah,
I have a buddy who's super fucking lucky when he goes to these thrift stores and secondhand stores, and I'm like, dude, you picked this up for $1, and he picked up 2 rangefinders that work perfectly. I tested them out for him, and he picked out this Nikon DSLR, the perfect a 50mm 1.2 lens or 1.4 lens. Wow. And he picked all those up for under $5.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're kidding me. He's like, yeah, I'll probably just sell them on eBay or something like that. And I'm like, fuck. He gave me one of the rangefinders, which is super cool. But I'm like, every time I go to a thrift store, everything's crap, man.
Yeah.
I can never get any good deals on anything.
I think you'd be surprised on those deals are going to probably be around for years to come, I think. Just because there's so many people that still don't know or aren't as tuned in to what's going on.
Yeah.
And or some people just it's like, okay, maybe this is worth something, but I don't care. I'm just going to take it to the thrift store.
Yeah.
I want it all gone or whatever. So, I mean, it sucks that people take their stuff to the thrift store. They take their grandfather's stuff to the thrift store because it's stuff of big value, just because it's not so that they can sell it for value, but it's it'd be nice, I wouldn't want my grandkid to hawk my Leica M3 for, or to take it to the thrift store just because he doesn't know what it is or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it almost upsets me when I find a really, really, really nice camera and then they just give it to a thrift store for free.
Yeah.
It's just
oh man, it's just it's not just necessarily that it's valuable.
Yeah,
it's that one, it was valuable to someone at one time because it's a legit tool, and two, that they are just so dismissive of how great of a tool that thing really is.
Right, and that's the same thing with the vintage home movies too. It's how could you give away your history?
Yeah,
and that's kind of, I'm buying it not to kind of to preserve it, kind of to view it, and hopefully one day to share it. I'm not going to hog these things. I want to get them digitized and then either throw them up somewhere so people can watch them, because it's not mine. I didn't create this stuff, and I got no right to keep it locked away or anything like that. I just don't have any money because that shit's expensive.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money to get shit digitized nowadays, but. I mean, slowly but surely, I'll probably start getting that stuff up, and I just want to share the stuff that somebody thought was worthless.
Yeah,
I mean, I definitely think it has immense value, from a historical standpoint. As far as that's just from the film standpoint, film side, but even with cameras, it's man, nobody in the family cared about cameras or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
you couldn't find somebody.
I mean, there's just so many people in this country that there's so many people that there's circumstances where it's one person in the family into cameras and stuff like that, and they pick up something nice, and then shit happens, and there's stuff for somebody else to take care of and just pass it on.
Yeah, I mean, but
that's the world.
Unfortunately, it is. Well, man, I can sit here and dork out with you on cameras for a long time, but I'm going to need to let you go, because otherwise we'll be here till fucking
the sun comes
the
up.
morning. Yeah. Man, I really appreciate you coming by.
My pleasure.
And giving us your perspective. And I think I'm going to want to pick your brain again soon. Your perspective is, again, from someone who's been in the film photography for a minute, and yet how young you are, that blows my mind. And I'm it fills me with not joy, but I'm fucking happy about it. But it really at least lets me know that there's someone still trying to shoot film and still trying to get some sort of aesthetic and still trying to pass the torch in a certain way to keep this thing as long as active as long as it can. And it's not that I'm fucking all about like specifically shooting film. And I hope that is something that we talked about today, that shooting film isn't just the thing itself. It's how much you need to know to shoot film. Right. And I think that's knowledge and information that needs to be passed on, because I think that opens a bunch of doors to other things as well. I mean, it's not just, okay, I just learned how to use a camera, but learning how to do that can facilitate learning how to do a bunch of other things too.
Yeah.
And that was like, again, I'm like stoked that you're learning and you learned this stuff, and hopefully a lot of other people start picking it up too.
Oh, yeah, I love learning as much as I can about the film industry and past, previous, and then like projections for the future. It's just something I'll keep a pulse on and always looking out for information.
Hell yeah. Right on. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
And I hope to have you back soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I really appreciate your patience, especially if you sat through all of that and were really like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? But, I promise I'll keep these to a minimum. Well, maybe. We'll see. Just kidding. All right. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always drop us an email at thecommonrule@gmail.com. The website is thecommonrule.com. The Twitter is Restless Samurai, and the Instagram is The Common Rule. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day and enjoy your youth.